This is a full guide on how to design a sci-fi gun in Blender. Inside this course, you're going to learn everything from modeling, texturing, and lighting all the way to the final render. Small disclaimer, this is not for absolute beginners. The workflow is going to be fast and advanced. So, I highly recommend continuing with this course if you are an intermediate or advanced level, or at least someone who has a basic understanding of how surface modeling. If that's you, let's get started. So, before we hopping into modeling, I just want you to know some of the tools we are going to be using in this course. So, for modeling, I'm going to be using tools like Machine Tool and Box Cutter. So, the way we set up the add-on is really crucial if you really want to follow up this tutorial. So for Box Cutter, you don't really need to do anything. Just install it and you're good to go. But for Machine Tool, there is a few things that you need to change. So first up, just copy all the settings. So I enable Smart Word, Smart Edge, Smart Face, Cleanup. So these are all the settings I enabled in the Machine Tool general settings. So I just pause here and just copy the setting. So the one main setting that you need to enable, which is this mirror. Now a lot of people are just thinking that I'm using Mesh Machine to mirror it, but the way we mirror is using the Machine Tool. So let me show how it works. Once you enable the mirror tool, you just go to the key map and you have to set up it. So just find mirror and click on this keyboard. Next to keyboard, you have some option, just click on it and you have to press any key. So I set up it just like hotdogs, Alt plus X, which is really easy and it's very familiar key for mirroring. So you can just assign any key you want, it's up to your preference. The way this mirror function is worked is really simple. So for example, I just select this cube and go to the edge mode and I'm doing a chamfer on the left like this. Now to mirror these changes to the right, all I do is just Alt plus X and mirror it to the left. That's it. So this is the way we use mirror. And the second setting that you need to enable, which is Smart Apply. So if you're using Box Cutter, then you can actually combine Machine Tool and Box Cutter. So the way we do it is by enabling where is it? Yeah. At the very bottom, under Pie menu, you have an option called Tool Pie. You can actually read it. It tells that switching tools and annotate with Box Cutter and hotdogs and hyper cursor support. So the way it works is, if you just perform any boolean, for example, let me just enable the Box Cutter and draw a shape like this on the left side. Now, you can see that it added the boolean modifier in the modifier stack. Instead of just coming here and apply one by one, you can just select your model, press Q and Smart Apply. That will apply all the boolean instantly. So yeah, these two settings are really important and it actually makes the workflow fast and easy. Yeah, now let's get into modeling. Alright, first let me enable the screencast key add-on so you can actually see what key I'm pressing. Okay, let's start with the default cube. So I'm just going to scale this up on the Z and making it wider on the X. Oh wait, actually let's decrease the scale on the X. This is going to be our front side. So let's make it a thinner like this. Now I'll switch to side view and just making it a bit wider and yeah, just like that. Next, I'm going to enable the Box Cutter add-on. I'll choose the N-Gon option, which is super useful for custom shapes. So I'm just going to draw a line like this, bring it up and push it out a shape like this, bring it down, draw a cross line and just keep building the rough shape. Then I'll fill in those cutout empty spaces and hit enter. Now let's go into face mode. Select the top face and bring it up just like that, and now I'll draw up another cross line somewhere like here, move it straight, then go down and follow the shape. Doesn't matter if it's perfect or not, we can always fix it later. Okay, Let's cut that. So now we got the rough shape of our design. Let's multiply and don't forget to apply the scale. Now it's time to fix the uneven shapes. So I'm going to edge mode. Select this edge and run a bevel with a few segments to give it a curved surface. Next, I'll select this edge and just move it down like this. And let's straighten things out a little. So I'll grab this edge, move it back and make it more even. Then I'll bevel this edge and bring this front edge forward. Looks better already. Now let's refine the shape a bit. I'm going to select the top edges and run a smooth bevel. Then mirror the other side using the machine tool. After that, I'll grab this edge and move it down like this. Next, I'll select all the side edges and give them a nice chamfer to avoid any sharp points. I'll run a bevel on the each edges. Now, you could just select all the edges and bevel them at once, but I personally like to bevel separately. That way, I can control the bevel amount depending on the space. And yeah, after finishing the bevel process, we got the nice smooth hard edges, which really brings in some visual interest. Next, let's grab this edge loop from the back and give it a bevel. Nice. That feels very good. Now, I'm going to select this edge and instead of a bevel, let's run a chamfer this time, just to kinda echo the same detail. Moving on, I'll take this front edge. It's gonna look boring, so let's drop in a nice chamfer here to break the monotony. Much better. And quick tip, whenever you feel like you've done something nice, don't forget to save your Blender file. Always a lifesaver. Okay, back to modeling. I'll grab this inside edge loop and run a smooth bevel. That way we get a nice soft transition instead of a hard one. Looks clean. Now let's bring in a new piece. I'll add a cylinder. Default vertices are fine, so I'll just scale it down, squash it a bit on the Z, then move it to the front, rotate it 90 on X, and I'll scale it down on the Y to stretch it out like this. Good. Bring it closer to the gun side. Maybe scale it a little smaller, then push it into the model. Going into face mode, I'll grab this front face, extrude it back, and scale it down. That blends really nice with the body. Back into the edit mode, scale it a touch smaller, and level this edge loop. Works great. Now, I'll grab this front face and give it a tiny chamfer. Oh, that messed up. Probably forgot to apply the scale, so let's try again. Yep, that fixed it. Perfect. Let's add a little bevel here. Then chamfer this one. And now I'll select all loop edges and run a small chamfer across them. Bottom shading looks off. Okay, let's just manually mark these edges sharp. And I see like maybe the mirror's problem, so we just apply the mirror first. Done. Now reapply the mirror modifier there and back into edge mode. Select this everything and mark sharp again. And yeah, that cleaned it up. Looks solid. Now I'll push this cylinder in a little further until it blends nicely with the main body. Just connecting those chamfer together. Let's hop into vertex mode. I'll enable X-rays so I can grab through. Deselect the extras and box select the spot I want. Move them down a bit on the Z. That's an interesting shape. Let's nudge it up slightly for symmetry, and yeah, nice balance now. Next, let's throw some details on the top. I'll switch over to the N-gun cutter, slice out a shape here, press B to apply a bevel, and cut it through. Looks good. Now, switching the cutter to box. I'll draw a rectangle, keep it aligned the same height, bevel it too, and cut it. Perfect. Alright, let's multiply and add some stuff at the top. So, I'm placing my 3D cursor here, drop in a cylinder. First thing, let's increase the segment. Yeah, 64 should be smooth enough. Rotate it on X, scale it down again, and stretch it on the Y to fill in the space. And apply shade smooth. I think we could scale it even bigger. Then flatten it on Y. Just make sure it doesn't stick out weird. Bring it down. Push it to the right. And there we go. That's it better. But the front piece, nah, it's kinda ugly. Let's slice it with box cutter. Just draw a rectangle and cut it. Now just apply all the booleans and go into edit mode. Let's clean the geometry a bit. Select all these edges and delete them. We don't really need them. Oh wait, the cylinder is kinda poking out at the top. Let's scale it down. Bring it lower. Maybe shift it left a bit. Adjust the scale again. Okay, that looks much better. Still, the cylinder feels a bit blocky. Easy fix, throw on a subdivision modifier. Just increase the level to 3, that gives a nice smooth surface, and then I'll just insert the face to sharpen it up. Let's also add loop cuts to not lose the sharp edges. Slide it closer. Yeah, now it's smooth and clean. Okay, select the cylinder and let's bevel it. Oh yeah, fucking again. Apply the scale first. Give it a nice chamfer. Drop another loop cut. Grab the back faces. Slide it left. Then select the loop edge and extrude the face out. Like that. Cool. Now let's scale this piece down so it actually fits. Let's isolate the cylinder to work clean. Grab this face, insert it, extrude it outward, and add a loop cut, then bevel it, slide it left, then extrude inside path for depth. Finally grab these two edge loops and give them a nice minimal chamfer. There we go, smooth, clean, and looking way better. Next, we could add a cube and scale it down. Just bring it to the right side, scale it on the Y, and move it up, and fill in the gap right here. Now, let's scale it a bit on the X, just to keep it tighter, and we could even make it a little more interesting by adding few cuts. So, I'm going to draw a line at the top, like that. Then let's draw another line at the bottom, move it up, and kind of forming a shape here. Close it off and cut it. Now let's multiply and go into edge mode. I'll select this loop edge and give it a nice chamfer. That feels better. Then I grab these two edges and run a bevel with a few segments to smooth it out. Now we can grab this 2H loop and run another bevel. Just round it off and clean the surface. Let's mirror the changes to the other side. Much better. Now I'll switch the cutter type to circle. Draw a circle right here and then press tab to freeze the operation. press E to extrude all the way to the back, then cut it. Now let's move this over to the left, like that. And I'm going to add a cylinder here. This is going to be the muzzle of our gun. Let's scale it down, rotate it to match the circle at the top, then jump into the front view, move it up, position it right in the center. Next, I'll scale the cylinder on the Y, stretch it out a bit like this. Now switch to face mode, grab both faces and insert them just slightly. Then I'll use the loop cut and bridge those faces together. Okay, let's add a loop cut and bevel it for some nice detail. Now I'll extrude this face out and scale it down just a little on Y. Looks better already. To add more details, I'm going to run a box cut here in the middle of the cylinder, just to break up the surface and make it more interesting. Now, we are going to add another cylinder, but this time I'll reduce the segments to 32. Since this piece is going to be pretty small, we don't really need too much geometry here. Rotate it 90 degrees on the X and just move it over to the left. Switching to face mode, I'll grab this face, extrude it out a bit, then give it a nice small chamfer to soften the edge. Now, on the front face, let's add another chamfer, select it again, insert slightly and then extrude it back. Once that's done, I'll apply Shade Auto Smooth to clean it up, then just tweak the overall size until it feels right. And finally, I'll mirror it across to the other side so we got nice symmetry. Next, I'm going to add a cylinder and set the segment count to 80. Rotate it 90 degrees on the X-axis, scale it down on the Y and bring it down into the place. Let's make it even smaller. This piece is going to be the ammunition magazine for our gun. I'll rotate it slightly on the X, then scale it up overall and push it down a bit on the local Z, and then just apply the Shade Auto Smooth. That's our basic blockout. Let's refine it. Jump into face mode. I'll grab these two faces and run a small chamfer. Then I'll select this face loop, press D to duplicate it and separate it out into a new piece. Switch to object mode and now I'll add a solidify modifier to this piece. Let's increase the thickness to something like this and I'll throw in a subdivision modifier for extra smoothness. This is what's going to give us the nice organic surface. I'll set the subdivision level to 3 for a smoother result. Now, let's apply the solidify modifier and jump back into the edit mode. Adding a loop cut and pushing it all the way over, then add another loop cut on the other side to help keep the sharp edges. That way, when subdivision kicks in, we don't lose our form. I'll also add a loop cut through the center, move it slightly to the right, then add another one and push it left. Now, I'll select the 6 faces and hit Alt plus E and choose Extrude Along Normals and pull them inward. To sharpen the edges, I'll press I to insert those faces. That gives us a nice clean detail. Let's add even more fun. I'll grab these 2 faces, insert them and extrude it outward just a bit and add a loop cut to the far left and another to the far right. Then I switch to the edge mode and add a loop cut across, bevel it and then go back to the face select. I'll select along this edge, insert the face and extrude them inward to keep things sharp. I'll add supporting loop cuts at the corner to not losing the shape. Next, I'll drop in a loop cut here, then select the row of the face from this point, all the way across. Do the same on the opposite side and extrude them inward. Again, I'll add a loop cut on each side to control the shape. You might see some stretching. To fix that, I'll throw in another loop cut here, slide it upward a bit, then mirror it across. Much cleaner. Now for the complex detailing, I'll select this corner faces and I'll just make sure the proportionality is turned on, and then I'll press the G key to move them. I'll shrink the influence circle down so it only affects a small area. Then I'll pull it along the local Z-axis. Adjust the circle size until we get a cleaner result. And there we go. That's a nice bit of surface detailing. Let's bring the same detail to the left side. I'll grab a few edges, slide them right and hit enter. Looking at it though, the right side feels a little too smooth, so I'll add a vertical loop cut and slide it all the way down. That way it keeps the smoothness but doesn't get overly soft. Much better. Alright, then we are going to select all the faces inside and just insert them very slightly and extrude the face outward. Just press E and don't even move the mouse or do any adjustment. Just press E and just leave it. That gives a nice sharpness. Perfect. Let's apply the mirror modifier and jump into the edit mode. Okay, I'm going to add a loop cut first, then select these faces, extrude them upward and press F to fill in them into one clean face. With proportional editing enabled, I'll just push this part up a bit. Now I'm dropping in another loop cut, then grab these faces and slide them on the X. See the curve forming. That's a super smooth transition and it instantly feels more realistic. But hold up, I noticed the top face has some bad shading going on. So I'll grab this all edges and press S and 0 to scale them evenly. Much cleaner. Do the same things on the other side. Way better than before. Now mirror the changes across. Done. Let's spice it up with some cool subdiv workflow. I'm adding a loop cut, sliding it down to keep those odd edges tight. Now let's throw in another loop cut and push these edges left. And see how it creates the smooth S-shaped surface. That's exactly the kind of detail that makes the model pop. Now let's add a cube. Scale it down and place it right at the center. I'll scale it on the X until it fits naturally inside the animation. Just move it up a bit and also scale it on the Z-axis and let's make it a bit thinner on the Y. I'm going to move this gun muzzle to the left. Scale this thing a little taller and position it towards the right side. We could scale it again on the X or instead just go into the edit mode and add a loop cut at the center. Select the top face and scale those on the X-axis. Next, I'll add another loop cut at the top. Let me isolate this piece. Select the top faces and scale them down on the X. Then add another loop cut at the bottom and scale that down too. Just like this. Now position it right here. Let's add another loop cut again at the top. Select these faces and scale them just a little on the X. Let me quickly check if everything is okay. Yeah, looks fine. Let's go back, isolate this cube and Now let's select the back faces and extrude them to the right. I'll also grab these edges and run a very small bevel. Shade smooth. Kinda looks silly. Let's undo that. Instead, apply the scale first, then run a bevel again and see. Yeah, much cleaner. Now, just move this piece a little bit up and hold the shift key for precise adjustment. And to refine it, I'll go into the edge mode, select both top and bottom edges, and run a nice clean bevel. Ignore the bad shading here, it won't really show up much later. Alright, let's adjust the animation magazine so it perfectly aligns with the shape. So, I'm going to select both cylinder and just rotate them slightly on the x-axis like this, and yeah, it looks better. Now let's grab this cube, hop into the edit mode. I'll select the surrounding edges here and let's run a big chamfer. Yeah, that soften up nicely. After that, I'll move this up a little. Let's push it to the left side and scale it down. Switching back to the face mode, I'll grab this back face and extrude it towards the right side. Now let's add a loop cut, slide it to the right, and then select this face here and extrude it outward. That gives it a nice extension. Finally, I'll grab this front edge loop and just run a minimal chamfer. Yeah, that clean it up. Alright, next I'm selecting this cube and I'll add a loop cut right at the center. Bevel it out a bit just to give it some size. Then I'll extrude the face forward. Now I'll grab the front edge loop and also the back edge loop, and let's run a little chamfer here. That way the edge pops out more and it looks more detailed. But I see it's overlapping slightly, so let's fix that. I'll scale it down on the x-axis, just a small precise adjustment. Much better. Now I'm going to cut in a rectangle. Extrude the piece inward and bevel those corners just a tiny bit and hit enter. Cool. Although I can see the top piece is kind of mixing weirdly, so let's stretch it on the x-axis. Bit more. Yeah, that separated nicely. Next, I'll throw in another rectangle cut at the top. Push it inside, not too deep, just enough to give that panel look. Bevel it and hit enter. Now let's multiply. Alright, now let's go to the face mode. I'll select the inside face. Looks like it's a bit too deep, so I'm going to move it forward slightly. Oh wait, I'm spotting a little pinching at the corner. That usually means disconnected vertices, so I'll just merge these two vertices at first. Now for these vertices, I'll add a loop cut, slide it up, and then select the both end and press J to join them align. And I'll do the same thing to this edge just to clean up the geometry. Let's add another loop cut at the top and then connect those two vertices too. That'll help us tighten the shape and having a clear geometry. Also, these edges are looking a little too sharp, so I'll throw in some loop cuts and adding extra geometry and give it a much cleaner surface. And yeah, I'll need to do the same fix to the left side, but instead of just repeating myself, let's just do a quick forward through that. Alright, after a small geometry correction, we are back. Now I'm selecting the top piece. We don't actually apply the bevel, but anyway, that's not really a problem here. I'll just grab this bottom edge and run a medium chamfer. Yeah, that actually feels more solid. We are almost at a stunning design already, but let's keep building. I'm going to the front face and adding a cylinder. Let's reduce the segments to 32. Then we scale it really small. Flip the face and scale it down even more. Move it down a bit. And now we'll move the cylinder forward. Apply shade smooth. Looks clean. Now we are ready to build some detail here. I'm selecting the face, inserting it small and extruding the face inside. Then I'll grab the top edge loop and also the inside edge loop and run a very minimal chamfer on both. Next, I'll add a loop cut, slide it forward and then select these back faces and extrude them out. Like that. Let's go back to the object mode and see how it looks. Not bad, it actually coming along pretty well, right? But it feels like we are missing some crucial part of the gun. So I'm going to add a cube, scale it small and bring it back near the ammunition. Just make sure it's not wider than the base body. Let's scale it a bit on the Y and then stretch it all the way up on the Z. Now I'll bring this piece down a little and rotate it so it's aligned nicely with the ammunition magazine. Let's move it back slightly and adjust the position so it feels like naturally fitting on the surface. Okay, now let's go into the face mode. I'm selecting the bottom face, pulling it down just a little, maybe even a bit. Then I'll add a loop cut, slide it down and select this face to extrude it out. Not perfect, but anyway, let's extrude it. Grab the Z and move it down to match the straight level. I'll adjust the surface slightly, selecting the both face and moving them up a bit. Then I'll add a loop cut somewhere in the middle, select the front face and extrude it forward. There we go. Now we are actually blocking out the rough shape. Alright, let's refine this blocky shape. I'm gonna grab this edge and run a bevel. It's not even. Okay. Let's apply the scale first. Now bevel it again. Yeah, that's pretty smooth. Nice clean bevel. Next, I'll grab the bottom edge and just push it back a little. Now, I want to straighten the bottom surface, so I select all the faces, press S, Z and 0. And that makes it perfectly flat. This front face, I'm gonna straighten it along the Y-axis. Still feels a bit flat and boring, so I'll add some curve. I'll grab this side edges and add a fillet. Not sure. Let me just try with a chamfer instead. Yeah, chamfer actually looks better here, but we got some little messed up. The vertices is collapsing. Okay, let me just slide it to see if it fixed that issue. Actually, I think we don't even need this edge, so I'm gonna select it and press X and dissolve it. And yeah, looks good. But we do have some misalignment, so slide it up to match the curve. Nice and smooth. Let's fix the same thing on the other side too. Yeah, same process. Just repeat it there. Alright, now let's add a few cuts. I'll draw a line from the top, going down across the shape and slice it. Apply smart and then bevel this new edge like this, and it looks solid. Also, I'll grab this inside edge loop and run a small bevel, just the same trick we used earlier. Cool. Let's jump back to the object mode and just mirror everything over to the other side. Done. Alright, let's go back to the main body of the gun, and I think we could add a few slices here. I'm gonna draw a cross cut going down, move it straight and kind of forming a stair-step shape. Then just press X to slice it. Now select the sliced piece, run a smart apply and also apply the booleans. Nice and clean. For this one, let's set the origin point to the middle. Now scale it out just a bit wider, make it pop more, and that looks cool. I'll add another slice here. Now this one is going to be our hand grip, so I'll sketch the shape like this, give it a bit of radius and press X to slice it. Alright, now let's define the back side of the gun. First, I'm going to clean up the geometry. I'll press the dot key, that actually a custom key I've assigned for machine tool. Next, I'll add a bit of geometry at the top. That way, when we run a boolean later, we won't get some weird shading issue. Just keep things clean. I'll also throw in a weighted normal modifier to smooth things out. Now, I'll draw a rectangle cut here, press X to slice it. That shading, that because of the modifier stack, easy fix is just pull down the weighted normal in the stack. Okay, let's smart apply these two objects, and I grab the small piece, isolate it and switch to the edge mode. Now I'm selecting the corner edge loop and hit Shift plus D to duplicate it. Move it a bit back. Let's separate this new edge into a new object. So go back to the object mode, delete this old one. Now with the new edge loop is created, I'll place the 3D cursor right at the top left corner. Then add a circle, set the segments to maybe 15 or 16. Let's push it to 18. Wait, I forgot to enable the screencast key. My bad, sorry about that. Scale down the circle, flip it and scale it even more. Now from the side view, I'll just position it closer so they overlap nicely. Just be sure that the both object is placed at the right position. Now select the both edge and hit Ctrl plus J to join them. Select this vertex and the bottom one, merge at last. Do the same for this edge. Then I'll clean the middle. Delete all the middle words. And also delete the right side of the circle words. Basically just combining the rectangle and circle edges. Now select everything and press F to fill the face. Set the origin point at center. Then mirror it Alt plus X to left and again Alt plus X to bottom. Now switch to face mode, extrude it out and apply shade auto smooth. That looks way better. Alright, I see some overlap here. Let's just delete this. Yeah, now we got an interesting shape forming at the back. I'm just going to move it a bit away like this. Feels a little too wide though, so I'll reduce the size with a quick cut. Let's smart apply and bring this piece closer. Now I'll grab these edges and run a small chamfer just to soften it up. Up at the top right, I'll do a circular cut. Just draw a circle something like this and extrude it slightly inward. Just this amount and perfect. Now I'll mirror that over to the other side. Still feels like we got a lot of negative space back here. So let's set a rectangle cut. Don't go too deep, just enough, and bevel it and cut it. Okay, now I enable the cutter and select it and adjust the shape a little. Next, I want to do another custom cut. So I'll switch to N-gon and start drawing. Kind of unsure about the shape right here, but yeah, let's just run a straight line across and give it some thickness. And hit enter. Oh wait, there's a mistake. We should have applied the mirror first. So undo that, apply all the mirror modifier and check the stack order. Always make sure the order is correct or you're risking losing some work. Don't be careless. Alright, let's draw a straight line again. Give it a thickness and hit enter. Do the same on the other side. And make sure both have the exact thickness and angle. That's really crucial for balancing. Now we can hide the cutter and yeah, they're looking good. Now let's add some detail to the back. I'm going to face mode and select these 4 circular faces. Then extrude them out just like this. Next, I'll add a loop cut here and another one down at the bottom cylinder. Let's slide those loop cut a little to the left to refine the shape. Now, I'll grab both of the face loops and extrude them out along the normals, which gives us some really nice depth. After that, I'm selecting the end edges on the both cylinders and run a small chamfer to soften them out. Perfect. Let's mirror everything to the other side so it's match. And to push it further, I'm back in face mode. I'll select these faces and pull them back slightly. Alright, next up, let's refine a few edges. I'll grab this object, go into edge mode and select the bottom edge. Give it a chamfer like this. Nice. Now I'll switch to the smaller piece, grab these 2 edges and run a bevel with few segments. Back again. I'm going to select these 3 edges and smooth bevel them too. To keep it consistent, let's bevel the main body edges as well. Just a small one. Oh, looks like we lost the grip handle here. Yeah, no worry. I'll redo the same way we did earlier. Follow the same shape and just draw something like this. And bevel it, slice it with X and we are back. To highlight edges overall, I'll throw in a bevel modifier. Wow, that's way too much. Let's bring it to down like 0.04. This is okay. Maybe I think 0.014 feels cleaner. Yep, that works best. Now let's move on to the animation magazine. I'll grab this back edge and isolate it for a cleaner workflow. Now insert the face, extrude it out and finish it with a small chamfer. Looks decent. Time for some detail. I'll do a small circular cut in the middle, then extrude it inside and press V twice for a radial array and space it out nicely. Maybe 8 or 9 counts or 6 counts looks balanced. Not too busy, just right. Now let's check the front side. I'll start by inserting the face, extruding it out, then run a full chamfer, then insert it again, extrude it inside, and one more insert, extrude for repeating detail. And finish it off with a small chamfer. Clean. Back in object mode, I'll draw a vertical cut here, push it deep, and bevel it a bit, and hit enter. On the right side, I'll do a horizontal cut, same size for symmetry, and cut it. Now mirror left and down. Oh, it added an extra cutter by accident, but honestly, I love it, so I'll keep it. Now another cutter, but first let's apply all the booleans and always make sure it is the right auto stack reapplying, or else you just lose some of your work. Now, adding rectangle cut here, push it inside. It's kinda look like silly, but trust me, it will work. Let's add another small vertical cut, this time a bit smaller, push it back a little, and bevel it and cut it. Still not done. I'll draw a circular cut inside the rectangle, move it back a little for depth and cut it. Now I'll smart apply, switch to face mode and grab this face, insert it slightly, extrude out and chamfer the edges. Looks way better already. To make it even more realistic, I'll grab this edge loop and run a small bevel. You could do a modifier here, but I'll stick with a manual bevel. It gives me more control. Alright, let's start focusing on the front side. I'm going to draw a circle right here, make sure it's dead center. Just extrude it inside and cut it. Next, I'm selecting the main body and I grab the bottom edge and run a small chamfer. That's much better. Now, I'm going to stack some additional mesh. First, I'll place the cursor here and add a cylinder, scale it down like this, then flip it on the Y and scale it even smaller, adjust it on the X-axis, yep, like that. Make it smaller again and just fine adjustment. Next, we are going to join both objects. Select them and run a union boolean. It looks a bit messy, but wire to normal should fix that quickly. I'll move this wire mesh into the cutter collection. Now, let's apply the boolean and go into H mode. I'm grabbing this face and scaling it down like this. Then I'll select the surrounding edges and run a bevel with a few segments to create a smoother transition between the meshes. Now, let's delete this extra edge loop so that we have more spacing for bevel. Then chamfer this face. And right now some geometry is collapsing. So I'll grab these edges and slide them out a bit to give space. Let's check in object mode. Yeah, that looks clean. Now, let's set a cube, scale it all the way down. Then stretch it up on the Z. Bring it forward like this. Rotate it slightly on the Y and position it just a bit to the right. Switching to face mode, I'll scale this face down. Now grab this edge and push it back to create a more interesting shape. Next, select this edge and run a small chamfer. Add a vertical loop cut in the center and bevel it. Also a horizontal loop cut, then slide it back. Now select these two faces and extrude them slightly inside. Finally, run a bevel on the edge loops to smooth it out, just like this, and perfect. Now let me select this new cube and go into H mode. I'm going to grab these two vertices here and merge them at last, and also same for these two. Merge them as last as well. Alright, now let's select all these edges around here and run a bevel. Yeah, that's much better. It gives us a nice rounded look instead of a choppy blocky feel. Next up, I'm going to select this bottom mesh and choose the end-on cutter. I'll start by drawing a cross line and a straight line, just like this. Then I trace the operation and extrude them out a little. Just a very small amount to add some nice detail. It is not perfect, I guess, so let's enable a cutter from the collection and pull this down a bit. Now scale it on the X, maybe a bit more. Yeah, that's fine. And also on this side, we could perform another cut. So I'm drawing a rectangle here. The cutter wasn't aligned properly, so I'll switch from local to nearest edge. Now let's draw the rectangle again. Give it a nice radius and extrude it out like this. Then hit enter to apply it. Let's enable the cutter and make it a few small adjustments. There we go. Next, I'm going to select this mesh and go into edge mode. I'll select these edges here and give them a nice bevel. Then I'll select this edge loop and add a bevel for smoother curved look. That's a nice refinement. Now we are missing a crucial part of the gun, the trigger. So let's build that. I place my cursor at this position, then add a small cube and scale it down. I scale it on the x-axis and also a little on the y to make it taller. Switch to front view. I'll position it at the center. Now let's start shaping it. I'm going to sculpt the scape using the N-con cutter. So I'll draw a cross line, bring it down and cut it. Then I'll smart apply and switch to edge mode. Here I'll select this front edge and move it back a little. Then I'll grab this back edge and move it as well. Next, I'll select these side edges and run a fillet. After that, I grab these two edge loops and give them a nice smooth bevel. Let's mirror this for symmetry and there we go. We got a basic trigger. Now let's refine it. I'll bevel the bottom face. Actually, a chamfer looks better here. Then I'll grab this box cutter and draw a rectangle here. And do some bevel and cut it out. Now I want to add some separation. So I'll duplicate this trigger. Scale is slightly larger than the original. Then shift select the main body and run a difference boolean. I pull the weighted normal all the way to the bottom, but still be facing some nasty shading issue. I don't know the exact reason. Maybe let's try adjusting the cutter to see if that helps. No, still there's. Maybe it's just lack of geometry. So I'll add a loop cut here and try bevel it with a few segments. Yeah, that actually fixed the issue. And now we got a clean gap for the trigger. But at the top, I noticed we still got some meshy shading. So let's go back to the edge mode and try to adding some horizontal loop cuts. I don't know the fucking reason why it's happening. Let's apply the boolean. Yeah, usually in some cases applying boolean can fix it. What the fuck? Anyway, let's start adding tertiary detailing. We already began, but anyway. Let's start with a rectangle. Give it some bevel and cut it. And also I pretty much hate the Blender 4.5 and 4.4 versions. They always give some extra job with fixing the modify stack. I usually prefer 3.6 or 4.0, which works best because you don't get any annoying shading issues. So if anyone has a solution for the latest versions, comment below. I want to get rid of those problematic auto issues. Anyway, now here I'm going to perform another cutter. Just like usual, but this time instead of leaving the cutter static like this, I'm going to enable the cutter from the collection. Select it and rotate it a bit on the Y. And then bring the cutter a bit forward, just like this. That gives us some interesting detail. You could also use box cutter with the wrench operation. It gives the same result, it's just depending on your preference. Now let's try the same trick on different places. I think here we have some spacing, so I'm drawing a rectangle, pushing it in and beveling it and hit enter. Now enable the cutter, rotate it on the Y like that and bring it forward. Just a closer. Yeah, that's awesome. This is just a simple cutter trick you can use in your model to bring that mechanical and industrial look instantly. Next, I'm looking for a place to add more details. So let's actually add something at the front view. And smart apply everything, then go to the face mode and select this face, insert it and extrude it inside. Not too much, just a very minimal, and yeah, like that. Now I'm planning to add some array detail. I'll start by adding a circle here, then use the array modifier to increase the count to 9 to 11. Then grab and place it at the center. After that, extrude it inside. Now again, add another circle, but this time keep it a bit more extended. Then increase the count like this and hit enter. After, adjust the shading issue. We got a nice detail at the front position, but the second one is kinda too deep, so I'm grabbing the cutter and moving it forward a little, just like this. Yeah, that's much better. Now here, we have some overlapping object. So let's reduce the size to fix that. Next up, I'm going to select the small cylinder, switch to edge mode and add a loop cut at the front. Let's bevel it. Then slide it left and extrude it out like this. Perfect. As usual, I'll add a chamfer to the front and back edge loop for a clean highlight. At the back side, we could add some small details. So I'm going to add a small rectangle and array it. Mirror is affecting the shape a bit, so let me set the count to 3 and leave some nice spacing. That works. Now I'll mirror the detail down to the bottom as well. I can see some bad shading happening at the bottom piece, so let's throw in some few more loop cut to prevent that. Much better. Now let's refine the cylinder shape. I'll go into face mode, insert this face, extrude it just a little, a very small, and then run a small chamfer for those nice highlight. That's clean. And finally, I'm going to add a chamfer to the top cylinder too, just to soften those hard edges. Next, at the side, I'm going to perform a rectangle cut over here. Push it a bit inside and bevel it. Press V to array and set the count to 3 and give it a nice separation. Let's move the weight and normal modifier to the bottom of the stack. There we go. That's a nice one. Let's mirror this small piece to the other side. Next up, we are going to add a loop cut. Slide it to the right and extrude it down. Then select this edge loop and give it a small chamfer. Now let's add a rectangle cut here like this and cut it. I feel like it's a bit too deep, so I'm going to pull this away slightly. Next, at the bottom, we'll run a small circle here. Push it inside and array the cut. Let's align it straight. Just rotate it slightly to fix it. Move it a little left and hit enter. Next, we could pull this cutter a bit away to prevent those deep holes. Over to the left side, we got some empty space. So, I'm dropping another rectangle cut, bevel the cutter and hit enter. Now select the cutter type from the collection and bring it forward and rotate a bit on the Y, the same type of detail we did earlier. Now, on this front piece, we could add some small detail. I'll place my 3D cursor here, select the cylinder, duplicate it and move it down. Let's make it smaller and move it to the bottom right. Now bring it forward just like this and we can mirror the detail over. Next up, I'm drawing a box shape just above the tiny cylinders. Select this cutter, switch to edge mode and I'm selecting these two edges and scale them down on the X. Now, we also select these two top edges and run a small bevel. Then we bring this cut to the front, rotate it on the X and hide the cutter. Next, at the top of the cube piece, I'm going to draw a small circle, kinda like a screw holes. Yep, that looks cool. Now, let's add another cut to the bottom. Push it inside and cut it. Finally, at the top piece, we'll draw some rectangular cut. Give it some extrusion and cut them in. Alright, next what we can do is select the cylinder, switch to face mode and grab this face here. I'll select it all the way until the end. Now let's insert the space like this and hit Shift plus T to duplicate and move it up. Then I'll separate this into a new piece. From here, we'll give some thickness by extruding the face. And to smooth things out, I'm going to add a subdivision modifier and set the level to 3. Now I'm actually moving it a bit further away. Like that. Switch back to the face mode. I'll add a loop cut and slide it to the corner to give some sharpness. Then I'll select this bottom face and press E to extrude it out like this. And then press G to bring this face to the front side. That's an interesting part. Let's add another loop cut and slide it up. Now, let's mirror it to the bottom. It is not placed properly. Well, we just slightly rotate it on the X and move it like this. Now for the bottom piece, let's go into edit mode, select this edge and run a bevel. And with the same object is selected, I'm going to draw a thin rectangle in the middle. Bevel it and cut it. Now for the main body, we could refine the shape a little. So I'm going into edge mode, select all the loop edges and running a bevel. Might require some adjustments before we move on. So I'll select all these faces, press S, Y, 0 to straighten them out evenly. Now if we select this top edge loop and run a bevel, it gives a smooth, nice shape. Let's start adding a few cuts. I'm heading into back side and drawing a rectangle between the main body and the back piece. Extrude that inside and add a bevel and cut it. At last, I select the cylinder, duplicate it and bring it down, rotate it 90 degrees on the Z, move it to the center and scale it even smaller. Then we can move this to the left. Now duplicate this one more time and place it on the right side. That's a pretty decent detail. There we go. We successfully finished the modeling process. Now go and grab some coffee, and when you're back, we'll jump into texturing and rendering this model. Alright, we are back. Now let's start adding some texture to our model. The way we texture this model feels like using Substance Painter, but in a light version. I'm using an add-on which is called MatricX. Make sure you're using the latest version, which is 1.5.1. I'll leave the link below. After installation, you'll get a new menu in the end panel. So I'm going to add a metal material here. The type I choose is painted bone metal. To add the material to our model, we simply click this generate button. And that's it. No UV unwrapping required. The texture gets placed evenly. But I feel like the texture scale is a bit too high, so I'm going to reduce the size by adjusting here. So let's set it to around 0.2 or something like that. Let's check it. Yeah, that looks great. Now we got a nice worn paint effect. If you want, you can also change the color to your liking, maybe like orange. That's up to your preference. But personally, I like to keep it at the default blue. Now, you'll notice we don't really have a direct option for imperfections. Well, technically you can add them. Let me show you how. I'll assign a default material to this cube and then add a dirt imperfection layer on top of it. I'll keep it dark and then set the metal color to blue. Just make sure the blue matches the same shade as our main material. Maybe let's adjust the roughness a bit and also increase the brightness so it gives the same result. So now we are going to mask this imperfection. Let me show you how to do that in step by step. First, go to the shading property. Select this cube and then select all the node setup except the output node. Now right click and choose copy. Now select our main material and paste the node setup here. Now just bring the both mix shader node closer to each other. Then move the output node a little to the right. Now duplicate the mix shader and plug it between the output node. Finally, connect the remaining mix node into the new mix shader. Now it's mixing both shader, but you'll notice that the imperfections are mild because right now it's a 50-50 mix. You could adjust the factor value, but that would usually affect the main material. The best way to bring out the imperfection is just by adjusting the color ramp slider. Nothing complicated, just come here and I'm just going to move this black slider to the left. So you'll notice that the more I move, the more imperfection became visible. Just adjust the slider depending on how strong you want the imperfection to be. I'll keep it very subtle like this and it's enough. Next, for the hand grip, let's assign the rubber material. I set the type to normal, that's more realistic. You'll see the texture if I zoom in. It's really interesting, right? Now, I'm going to assign the blue material to the top piece and also to the top layer of the ammunition magazine, as well as this bottom piece. For the secondary color, I would like to go with like greenish metal. First, I'll set the base color to dark, less saturated green, and the imperfection type to edgeware with the color set to gray. To preview the render look, I'll switch to Cycle Engine. Just see the result. If you're happy with it, you can just go, but I would like to tweak some settings. I'm going to adjust the edgeware strength a bit and also the edgeware balance. Now let's assign this material to the rest of our model. Here, I'm just showing you the one type of color combination. You could even go with something like crazy. For example, I'm going to replace the blue material with gold. That way, it creates a different vibe and look. Just play around with the type of material you want, but keep it simple, not too funky. Just like 2 to 3 color combinations or I do. Now we are going to add some decals for extra realism. First, I'm going to add a logo from the decal logo pack. I use the circle, scale it down small and position it in the middle. Now press D to open up this menu and hold the shift key and click on this project. That will project the decal onto the model. To change its color, go to the shading tab, switch to object and here disconnect the color output. Now set the color to black and reduce the alpha value to like 0.5 or 6 to blend it nicely with the material. Next, we are going to add a text label next to the logo. I'm using the GitHub's free decal pack and select this one. I don't think we actually need this big text here, so I go into edit mode and add a loop cut and delete this portion. Now back to object mode, place the label here and project it onto the model. Then change the color just like we did before. Now for the top cylinder, I'm going to add some walling label. I use the decal machine default pack. Use this label, now rotate it upside down. Move it away, then scale it up and bring it to the left. Now, instead of a normal project, hold the Alt key and then click on the project. That actually adds some geometry to perfectly align with the shape. Reduce the alpha value about 0.3 so it doesn't look too bright or separated. Let's actually move the decal to the right side. Now we select this animation top layer and add this detail decal. Kind of like a 4 square cuts. Match the rotation, adjust the position and scale, then match the color and project it onto the model. That's it. We finished decal and labeling. Let's move on to the next stage. Setting up the scene. First, we have to find the best angle for our gun. Just orbit around the view and see which angle makes the model looks good. Once you find the right angle, press the page down key and set up the camera. Now, I'm going to adjust the resolution. I'll set it to 2560 by 1140, which is a 16:9 ratio. Let's also increase the focal length to 125mm and after that, press the page down key again and unlock the view. Make sure that every corner of the camera there is some spacing. That makes the render looks professional. Now, if you want less spacing and more focus on the model, you can rotate the view like this. That way, the model covers more of the frame with less empty space. If you want more spacing, rotate the view like this. Now you get more empty space, less of the model in the shot, which is really useful if you want to add another image or design element to the right side. But in my case, I'm going to capture more of my model. Now here, still got some issue. Even though the camera captured a perfect angle, our subject looks static, and that makes it look average. Most beginners make this mistake and even I did in my past days. So, one way to break the static look is by actually rotating the subject. I'm going to rotate it on the X. Just select all and rotate it on the X and also on the Z just to make it dynamic and then adjust on the Y. That way we get a different angle of the subject which make it look more interesting. So we place the camera and we position the model. Next is lighting. Basically I use HDRI to light my scenes because they are simple and powerful. In this tutorial, I'm using a Studio Light HDRI for the setup. So we select the background node, press Ctrl+T and that will add these 3 nodes. Just make sure you enable the node wrangle add-on. And then in the image texture, we load the HDRI. I'm leaving the same one I use. you'll find the link in this video description. Just download it and load it to your node setup. Now we got some nice lighting. I rotate the z-axis to around 20 just to balance the lighting. At this point, you could already render the scene because we pretty much have everything. Just make sure you add a denoise node in the compositor. But I want to make it a little more dramatic, so I'll emit some extra lighting. For that, I add an area light and scale it up, then rotate it 180 degree on the X, then pull it back and align with the subject rotation. Next, I scale it a bit on the X, and then we set the light color to orange and the strength to 500. Now when you switch to render, you'll see a nice gradient light emitting from the bottom. It's especially cool if you add any fire spark later in the post-processing. Finally, just tweak the area light, scale and position depending on how much you want it to affect the scene. And once you're happy with the look, go ahead and render it in the transparent PNG format. Once you finish the render, you already get some pretty decent artwork. But the upcoming 5% is what actually turned this into a stunning artwork. And the step is called post-processing. Now, you could use any software for this. I'm using Photofeed to edit the photo. So, I'm adding a background and then place my PNG render image right on the top of it. From here, you can add effects like fire spark or smoke or anything you want. Just download an image, remove the background and then add it to your artwork. Next, you can throw in any text or branding to your liking. The more you create with this stage, the better the output will be. Once I'm done with some decent editing, it's time for color correction. Personally, I use Adobe Lightroom for this part. So, what I do basically is play around with the brightness, contrast, highlight and shadows. Then I increase the texture and clarity just a little bit. After that, I'll adjust the color mix, see which variation looks best and fix it. And finally, I'll do some small adjustment in color grading. Once everything feels right, I just export the image as a JPEG with full quality. Well, now you got a portfolio ready artwork. Go and fucking post it on the ArtStation account and Instagram page. Tag my name so I can feature your post on my stories. If you follow up this far, you actually becomes an advanced level artist. You might not believe it, but you actually did. This is huge. I really appreciate your time and dedication. Now, go and design your own piece. And hey, don't forget to keep a coffee and your earpods nearby. I'm glad you finished this course and I'll see you in another video. Stay hard.